I am live. I'm reading out of Joan Grant's book entitled Eyes of Horus. Joan Marshal Grant was a writer of her farm memories, and she's written 7 books about her farm memories. She passed away in 1989, and it is a Sunday morning here. It is the 26th of August 2023, and I'm reading out of part 2, which is the last chapter in this part 2, entitled 9, Beyond the River. She is living the life of Ra'ab, who is the son of a priestess, so she is male in this life. Before Kias and I left the temple, a messenger arrived from Sebek to say that the second son of Katani had not been drowned and was being cared for at the overseer's house. Sebek himself had gone to see to the work of repairing the breach in the aqueduct. The flood had done even more damage than we had feared, and so he wished me to bring as many soldiers as possible to help him. I had persuaded Kias not to come with me, for I knew she was very tired, so I sent another messenger to the soldiers' village to summon help, and telling Kias I would return to her as soon as possible, I set off to join Sebek. For 3 days we fought to subdue the water into the channel which had been made for it. The soldiers worked in 3 shifts at night by the light of torches. The people from the neighbouring villages came to help us, bringing food for the men and carrying baskets of earth, which was rammed down behind the great stones after they had been dragged back into their original position. On the morning of the 4th day, all had been made safe. So with Sebek, I returned to the soldiers' village, where I decided to spend the night before going on to see Kias and father. The weather had been calm since the storm, which had come with the rising of the river, but the journey homewards was difficult, for much of the land we had to cross was flooded, and part of the way we had to wade knee-deep through muddy water. Until we reached the house of the captains, I did not realize how exhausted I was. Even Sebek was so tired that he fumbled with the clasp of his cloak and had to be helped with it. The jar I used for washing had been filled with warm water, and my servant poured it over me to sluice away the mud. I only wanted to be left to sleep, but I was too tired to argue when he said he must first rub me with warm oil to prevent me getting fever. Gradually I relaxed under his strong hands. For a moment I thought he was Niam, and I a child again. The sound of water rising, always rising, was still drumming in my ears. I asked him, "Can you hear the water from here?" "No, it is quiet. The river is not angry anymore. The wind has fallen. There's not a sound save the bark of a jackal." And I could still hear the river when I drifted to sleep. I was in a boat. The water was quiet, hidden by mist. Then I saw the Anubis of the prow, and I knew I was crossing the river I had prayed so hard to find again. I was being taken to the land without shadows. She was standing on the bank, waiting for me. She smiled a little shyly. "This time, in case you couldn't find me, I didn't stay at the top of the avenue. I've been lonely for you. Twice I thought I heard your boat coming through the mist, and then it turned back. Why have you been so long time? You mustn't let me go again without telling me how to get back here. Over there, beyond the mist and the cliff, I have to pretend to be a soldier. They dragged me back when you took me to Anubis. They're always trying to drag me back." The river has vanished, and we were together in a little valley between the gently sloping hills. She sat down on the grass, and I lay with my head in her lap. She said, "I have seen you since the Anubis time. We were somewhere else, not here, beyond the river. It is difficult for me to get here sometimes." I asked her the question which had lived with me since first I saw her. "When I am going to meet you while we are awake?" "I don't know. Do you think we'll ever meet?" We must. Tell me your name, and make me say it over and over again, so that I'll be sure to remember. And tell me the country you live in. Even if it's the other side of the world, I'll set out tomorrow to look for you." She laughed. How do you know I'm not an Asiatic? Or an old woman in the land of the dragon people? You're not. You mustn't tease me. We must belong to the same people and be the same age. How old are you? I'm 14, Egyptian, and my name is Ra'ab. Ra'ab? That's easy to remember. I wonder when you'll hear me say Ra'ab when you're awake. What's your name? I asked her. I'll tell you when you see me down there. Anubis said we followed the same path, so you will see me. You're only making it more difficult, but I shall find you. I'll go to every town in Egypt, to every house and every street until I find you. But Ra'ab, that wouldn't help you. I don't look like this when I'm awake. I think it's dull to look the same all the time. You'll know me when we meet, but not by what I look like, not by what I'm called. Shall I pretend not to recognize you? I shall recognize you, and I know your name, Ra'ab, and you look here as you do on earth. What's happening to you over there? Something must be making it difficult for you to get back to this side of the river. Sometimes things get difficult for me too. I get tangled up in little unnecessary things like a fish in a net. I think it's being a soldier or pretending to be that's making it difficult. When I was at home with Kias, it was much easier to dream. Who is Kias? She asked quickly. She's my sister. She nodded. Oh yes, I remember. I've seen her once with you. Not here, but somewhere else. She had a kind of lion with her. She called it Anilops. I'm glad she is your sister. You're not in love with anyone? She shook her head. Not on the other side of the river. But you are here? With me? Am I? Perhaps. But I shan't tell you until you see me down there, in case you don't love me then. I may be ugly, with a squint and black stump of teeth, or perhaps I'm fat. I'd love you even if you were fat. Very, very fat. Dear Ra'ab, it is unfair you're not knowing what I'm going to look like. But it's good for me, it's good for you to love me without knowing, because if we go on living till we are old, I may grow ugly, but you won't stop loving me, and then we shall never be old on this side of the river. How did you know I love you? Because otherwise I shouldn't have been waiting for you when you first came here as Ra'ab. The boat can only be sent to fetch you by one you really love. Or Yabe fetched me. It's curious that she should have made your body for you. I used to think she might be my mother, who died when I was too young to remember her, but now I know she couldn't have been. Have you ever seen your mother? No, so I think she must have been only someone my father married. I don't really know him very well either. Will you always be a soldier? No, it's only one of the things my father says I'll have to learn. I'm going home soon, when I've become a captain. You didn't always hate being a soldier. We both were, not very long ago. We fought in a battle together and drove the Asiatics out of Egypt. They were called Sumas then. You liked being a warrior more than I did in those days. Which is funny, as you'll know when you've remembered about that time we were together. I think I'm going to be wakened soon. I'm going on a short journey with my father, and we're starting at dawn. I would have made an excuse not to go with him if I'd known it was tonight we should be together, so we could have stayed here longer. She bent over me. Find me again soon, Ra'ab, and I woke with her kiss on my mouth. Well, that's the end of part 2 of Eyes of Horus, and I hope you're enjoying it, as I am.